Greetings everyone, my name is Renegade Operative and today I will be focused on my review for Exoprimal. It's been a long time coming with this game. I have some history with it considering the fact that I was one of those Dino Crisis people that was kind of tilting my eyebrow a little bit at the fact that they were implementing a red-headed character named Majesty, and I'm like, oh, that's clearly a reference to Regina. Where's my Dino Crisis remake? But I digress. I'm reviewing a different game entirely, and I must judge it as its own sort of standalone experience. So what type of game is Exoprimal? Exoprimal is a third-person action adventure game focused around the idea of cooperative and competitive play. You are summoned into the environment with a high-speed exosuit robot, and that robot is tasked with one mission: dinosaur culling. You go around the environment and you kill all these dinosaurs spawning out of vortexes by a rogue AI called Leviathan. Leviathan wants to test out the best exo fighter in history, so it's your job to join the team. It's a team comprised of 5 people online, and you go and you kill as many dinosaurs as possible within certain time limits or parameters with mission objectives. This game is like what would happen if Earth Defense Force and Overwatch had a baby. That's the best description I saw on Steam, and it really rings true to the type of gameplay, along with the amalgamation of a little bit of Resident Evil 6 onslaught mode, where you're basically killing enemies while the other person is killing enemies, and you have to do it in the fastest time possible. I found the gameplay to be kind of fun, actually, when you really get down to brass tacks. So while you go in the environment, you're fighting all sorts of dinosaurs, whether it be raptors on screen, pteranodons, T-Rexes, triceratops, all sorts of enemies with varying health degrees and varying ways to take them out, stun them, use weapons and equipment in your arsenal to do that. There's sort of a class system as well. So going back to the Overwatch thing, you have your tanks where you can guard the point if you're doing something like domination and that mission-based structure where you're protecting one singular point or multiple. You have your tank that can put up a raid dome where no one can get in, and you're guarding that point and you're actively defending your teammates, and you have like a high amount of health. Or you deal with your assault class. Your assault class goes in, they're quick as fuck. You have like guns in your arsenal or incendiary rounds that can completely just burn the entire environment. Or you play a Zephyr where he's like lightning fast and he's doing like these multiple jump kicks all over the place, and it's really enjoyable and fun, and you're getting in there as fast as possible to assault either the enemy team or the dinosaurs themselves. Then you have your medics. Your medics, obviously, it's a no-brainer. It's self-explanatory. They will heal the entire team in the process. You can shoot them with bullets that you can interchange out if you play as Nimbus, so she can shoot people and also change to health bullets if she will, and shoot your teammates, and you will overcharge them, give them more health, and protect your teammates that way. It's a collaborative effort that really meshes in with the gameplay, and if your team just fall short of a cylinder, then you're bound to lose. You're bound to be cold yourself, and it's a mixture of player versus environment and PvP at the same time. So you're not only killing the dinosaurs, but you're trying to be fast and be faster than the enemy team, as well as opportunities to fight them at the end if you get objectives like, oh, who could kill dinosaurs the fastest, or who can capture and obtain points the fastest while the enemy team is centered about. Or if there's like a hammer, it's like an omega hammer segment, they can grab it, or you can grab yours, and then you smash the objectives, and then you continue onward until the final objective is smashed. There is a bit of repetition to some of these game modes. You will be seeing it a lot, especially if you're trying to beat the game and grind up. You will see the repetition sink in. So it's not like things like team deathmatch where you could just do this, do that, or it's not a big playlist, something to the equivalent of Time Splitters 2 where you're doing like a whole load of things in the multiplayer. This is mostly centered on dino survival, and we'll talk about later content and replay value, but despite the game being fun, it can get a bit old rather quickly, but that's what the roadmap is for, to sort of expand as we go along into the later seasons. the core gameplay itself and what's there and how you sort of go against the grain and then try to fight the enemies and the dinosaurs, it's fun. It's a fun, enjoyable experience. You can do combos, you have a whole load of weapons and arsenal. You have these cooldown perks where you can activate them and do certain buffs and abilities. Like for Zephyr, he's my main. I use him to just go around the environment, zip around the environment, and do these amazing, devastating combos to opponents, whether it's a shoulder tackle to dinosaurs up in the air after I do an air combo, or if I decide to play as Barrage and just shoot someone with the incendiary grenade and burn the entire environment. You also have this access to an overdrive, which is like an ultimate move. So of course, naturally, as I said, it was compared to Overwatch earlier, you have your ultimate where you can do massive damage to someone after the gauge is filled after some time. And there's perks where you can use it to gain it even quicker, gain cooldown abilities even quicker. And there's that element of strategy involved with this game where once you level up, you're really upgrading your character to see what works with more damage, more abilities, more agility, whatever fits your playstyle. That's one of the main things I really enjoyed about grinding in Exoprimal, was finding out what type of thing I like, whether it's being faster or stronger, having more defense to my character that doesn't really have a lot of health. Like there's some characters that have more health than others, and it makes sense considering tank and assault is vastly different. So I really enjoyed the game in that aspect, in that regard, as I played over time and experienced what I could unlock. There is a big unlock system, so there's these things called Bitcoin, and you unlock that by either completing a match. As you progress the story, you get more coins, and you also upgrade your survival pass as well as your levels. That is determinant on things you fight later in the game, and that's how the game progresses. There is more mission variety. I said earlier that it might get repetitious because you will run into some of the same capturing the point objectives or whatnot after playing it for so long. But to get like these dinosaurs that are high level, you'll see them interspersed with the gameplay and your leveling system. There's also other players that might get involved that might trigger like some of the same missions, because I saw that motherfucker Magnum. He's a guy in the game, and in my storyline he was dead, but in another person's storyline he was still alive. So I saw him like 8 times even though he was already dead. So there is a progression system to the actual levels in the game, and you will see final bosses, new bosses. Sometimes they basically will pair people up to do a 10-person dino survival battle. It's a special battle, and you might fight something like a Neo T-Rex boss. You might be summoned to fight special enemies like the Neo like the Dinosaurs that can, you know, try to snipe you, and they have special abilities and basically enhanced variants of the dinosaurs as you're fighting along, and it makes that part a little bit more interesting than normal when you stick with the game. The story of this game is quite honestly, I mean, I wouldn't say it's nonsense, but it's something where the emotional investment will vary, and it's not really there for me in my personal opinion, because you have this team of like pilots in this giant warship, and obviously it's very, I wouldn't say like it's illogical, it's just one note. It's one note as a story. So you have this team of people that is fighting against Leviathan, the rogue AI. And that's the basic premise of the story as you fight alongside them, and sometimes your characters will get corrupted by Leviathan, or you might see a pilot die here or there, and you're trying to get invested into these characters. And because they're not on the battlefield, well, mainly the ones on the ship, and the fact that your created character is a mute, it's hard to really care about what's going on in the plot. And more often than not, I had conversations with my friends where they were like, I'm skipping the cutscenes, I just don't care about the characters. Compare this to something like Gundam, where Some Gundam animes, you are invested into what's going on with the pilot due to the fact that he's actually on the battlefield. Some of the pilots that are in the ship are not on the battlefield. You're the only one that's there, and your character is a mute, so it's not a lot of characterization going on, but there is still heartfelt moments in the story. There is parts where it's like, oh, that feels a little bad, you know what I mean? And the voice acting is fine for what it is. It's not bad, it's actually pretty decent. It's just that you may not care as much going along. Now for the modes itself, well, you're mostly doing dino survival, which is the PvE mode, and you're fighting against all these dinosaur creatures in the environment and trying to kill them. Special dinosaurs will spawn here or there. Based on your level and how much you play, your level goes up, like I said, and you unlock more things from there in terms of varying modes. But since there's no playlist in the game, which is a criticism of mine, you can't just go and start like a 10-player dinosaur culling with the boss or anything like that. You have to wait till it actually unlocks. So I can see that being frustrating when it comes to progression, and you have to unlock the story by playing through, and you will hit those repeat missions since it is no control over how it progresses. It's just based on your level. Once you get a really good flow and a really good squad going, because of course, naturally, as they say, when you play with your friends is awesome. Once you really get that going, the game just feels great. Now obviously it doesn't feel really good when you lose and you're on the opposite side and it's like, oh, your team is moving slower than the enemy team. I know it can get frustrating, but when you win, when you go through all these objectives, when you go through hell to really beat the opponents, then it's just satisfying. It's something satisfying about this game and its inner core, despite the repetition that it has and despite the fact that it has a lack of playlists. I heard people complain about the microtransactions, saying that, well, there's a starter kit that you have to pay Capcom $13 for, and that there's a barrier of entry because this game is $60. Let me break that down for you really quickly. So the micros don't really bother me. The starter kit is for the 3 characters that you need to unlock in each class, with Assault, Medic, and the other one, which is Tank. So you unlock those characters earlier if you pay Capcom the $13, from what I understand. It really isn't a make or break thing, because you just find an exo rig that suits your playstyle in this game. No one's really that pay to win character just yet. You just find an exo rig that suits your playstyle and you go along. The game feels fairly decent on balancing and everything. Of course, there's bullshit moves and ultimates and stuff like that, but that's par for the course for discovering the game. I didn't feel like I was never gonna get these characters, because I grinded for like 3 days and I unlocked all the characters in the starter kit with the actual in-game currency, which is Bitcoins. So I feel like that's bullshit. Just play the game for like 3 or 4 days and you can unlock those characters no problem, and you never have to pay Capcom the $13 for the starter kit. As for the barrier of entry with $60, I think that's also quite funny, because I mean, mostly everything with this game has been advertised to be on Game Pass. 100%. I didn't buy this game at $60. I went and paid the fucking $14 or $16 on Xbox Game Pass, and I played it through there, and it really wasn't a problem. If you aren't feeling the game, at least with Game Pass, you have a whole library of other games that is beyond like the price range of $70 as you accumulate them. So it's a great deal nonetheless. You get to play Exoprimal for a cheap amount of money, and if you feel indifferent, you can cancel the $14 or $16, no problem. The barrier of entry couldn't be any more accessible for Exoprimal. It's just, I think they were talking about how they didn't have crossplay really shaped up at launch, so hopefully they fixed that, or if they fixed it already, that's fine. Either way, I didn't have an issue with 2 of these things. And then we go on to skins, which, you know, I don't care for. You know, it's just part of the equation. I bought my skins with the in-game currency, so it didn't really bother me in the long run. I got what I wanted after grinding so much. The grind was not significantly long. I can tell you for an honest fact that when it came to grinding, the worst experience I had was another game that I actually enjoyed, and that was Mortal Kombat 11. It took me a long time to get skins and features that I wanted, as opposed to this game where it's like, okay, play for like maybe 3 or 4 days, get on a good winning streak, and you'll unlock mostly everything you wanted if you stick to your specific character. So I didn't really see the big issue with that. There's obviously this hate and disdain for live service games, and the fact that some of them have been failing. I'm not gonna say all, because you know, people like to act really just weird about live service games and think that all of them failed, even though Fortnite and Rainbow Six Siege exist. But I had something in my throat, I'm sorry, I had to call some people out. But yeah, it's just this big disdain for live service games, and this is just a fun little, I wouldn't even say flash in the pan, because there is some ability of depth here, there is some ability to grow and move on. It just needs to evolve a little bit more before it's actually complete. Would I recommend this at $60? No, but would I recommend this on Game Pass? Hell yeah. I say it's worth the price of admission. It's not like those $60 are stopping the barrier of entry anyway. If anything, people did buy this game, along with the fact that they had Game Pass as well, so that's another barrier of entry dashed away. Now, what do I think of the whole Dino Crisis thing, and how this game is being related to Dino Crisis? And people are saying that Exoprimal killed the potential and ideas of Dino Crisis. I have 3 key points here that I want to share with you guys, and I know you're not going to want to hear it. It's the truth, and the truth hurts, but here's the 3 key points. So, number 1, this did not kill Dino Crisis at all. Guess what killed Dino Crisis? Dino Crisis 3 killed the Dino Crisis franchise. That game was so astronomically bad that one of the creative managers, Swenson, he said, oh, we remember Dino Crisis, fans bring that up all the time. Didn't Dino Crisis 3 suck? He keeps bringing that up. So Capcom are the ones that changed Dino Crisis because of the whole 9/11 crisis, and they shot themselves in the foot because they couldn't come up with a better idea. What killed Dino Crisis was actually Dino Crisis 3, and their idea behind it didn't really pay off for the revised version. That's number 1. We have to accept the truth. Sometimes an astronomically bad game in a series could kill the potential of future releases. If Dino Crisis was successful, like Resident Evil, if Dino Crisis 3 was hypothetically great, we would have more of those games, but we don't, because of that one sole entry and the fact that it has a couple of things to it and some dino stink on it. Number 2, what killed Dino Crisis? I already mentioned, it's Resident Evil. Resident Evil is by far Capcom's most profitable horror franchise of all time. Because of this, they don't feel any inclination to go back to other horror franchises right now. What's making money for them is Resident Evil, and I know I'm all for creativity. I'm all for Exoprimal as well, because this is a new IP, and Capcom did multiplayers in the past that didn't appeal to me, like Reverse. I was saying it was a flash in the pan, that it was fun, but it ultimately just died out, and I got even more bored with this game than Exoprimal. That being said, Resident Evil is in a good spot for the single player content and all the content they released so far outside of the multiplayer. Why even bother doing an uncertain survival horror remake, even though people keep talking about it? It's like, where is the monetary effort and quality, because Dino Crisis 3 wasn't that great and Resident Evil is just moving along successfully. Successful remake with RE4. So they have a tried and true formula, and sometimes companies will do that. There's a thing called sequelitis, where companies will do constant sequels to what's popular because it's safe. And that can apply to Capcom as well at certain points. Even though they're working on new IPs, they're working on Resident Evil as a survival horror franchise. That's the marquee survival horror franchise because it's safe to do. Whereas Dino Crisis is more or less a gamble if Capcom decides to do another game. Now, Would it be successful? Probably. With the way people talk about it, with the way it trends, you would figure that yes, there is a market for multiple survival horror games, but they need to figure out what they're gonna do and how differing they can make Dino Crisis from RE, because I'm gonna be honest, people, the first Dino Crisis was essentially just a Resident Evil clone. So it needs to distinguish itself from that franchise and become something that evolves itself, and that's going to be a hard process. And the third part is a little bit of optimism. I don't think that Dino Crisis is inherently dead if the creators decide, hey, we're going to make one regardless. With Exoprimal, they now can put like thousands of dinosaurs on screen, and it's absolutely crazy how many dinosaurs are running around, how many you can kill. It's just like 1,000 enemies pouring all out and no frame rate drops whatsoever, something that Capcom needs to be commended on. Because of these assets of handling multiple enemies on screen and slowing the pace down and having assets, and hey, if they want to use Majesty, if they want to use her model as Regina, they are more than inclined to do so. This game can serve as a blueprint to future titles, with testing the idea of multiple dinosaurs, maybe multiple zombies like Dead Rising, and then we can have those things coming to fruition in the future for Dino Crisis or Dead Rising or anything they see fit. Because when you experiment on something and you have like an eternal team and you have feedback, it could lead to other projects happening. It's not the first time that Capcom shared assets when they made Resident Evil 7 and they put some of those boxes in with the tape that Leon and Ethan could cut. Just they turned one red and one yellow. They can clearly reuse assets for a future Dino Crisis game, and people probably won't mind it or probably not even notice. And then on my final score here for Exoprimal is a solid 7 out of 10. I feel like we need to see how the roadmap progresses, and we're getting the Monster Hunter collab and Street Fighter 6, and there's going to be more exosuits apparently added, beta exosuits, alpha exosuits. You can play as Magnum, which is going to be my main. He's going to be my main when he comes out. And these new maps and new creatures like the Neo Tyrannosaurus Rex, not Neo Tyrannosaurus Rex, the Neo Triceratops, my bad. He's coming later down the line, new maps and stages and areas. I think this game is going to thrive on what they do with the support, the fan feedback, and the feedback so far for the people that have played the game has been overall positive. You can see in the Steam reviews, people rate the game as positive. So I think most of the hate comes from the fact that number one is not a Dino Crisis title, but we still could get one, and we know why Dino Crisis failed in the past, and I wouldn't necessarily blame Exoprimal. And then the other thing is live service and how people sort of are just turned off by that. But I'm just like, you know, there's always a room for multiplayer and there's always a room for single player, and it depends on how you do it. And this is a fun high-speed octane experience that I definitely would recommend if you are curious and you want to check it out on Game Pass and see how it is with your friends and just try it out. I definitely think this is one of the better attempts at multiplayer with Capcom day one. Not broken, you know. They need to be commended for what it is, and I just had a solid blast with this game. Of course, it could use some more modes, a playlist, further additions, but if they keep updating the game, if they keep adding to the pillars of the things that it really needs, like obviously more content and playlists and things that people request, this has the ability to become one of Capcom's better live service titles in quite some time. I stick with my 7 out of 10 for Exoprimal. I had a really solid blast playing this one. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below about my review for Exoprimal, and I will see you guys next time. This was fun. Hopefully you enjoyed the videos, and once again, stay brave, Exo Fighters. See you later.